For the world of 2D animation, the early 1900s were the gold rush for creativity and entertainment for the masses, allowing people's characters and stories to come to life. During this time, technology was not very advanced, so the process of animating was very time-consuming. When 3D animation software and digital tools were implemented into the animation world, classic 2D animation was slowly phased out and is hardly ever seen in current animation projects anymore. In this video, I will briefly explain the processes of both 2D and 3D animation and discuss why classic 2D animation and traditional art are slowly disappearing, what we can expect in the future for animation, hybrid methods of 2D aspects and 3D technology, and how the classic 2D animation we know and love can be preserved. So how does classic 2D animation work? Well, it involves animators drawing on pieces of parchment paper, then putting another piece over the original drawing, and changing the movement slightly in the next one. Eventually, when enough frames of parchment are made, the gradual movement of the character is seen when flipped through. Each illustration is photographed in order, they are then inked, and then finally colored. For lack of better terms, the classic 2D animation we have seen in studios like DreamWorks and Disney is a flipbook or stop-motion method. The small and gradual movements are drawn individually, but put together in order creates a fluid movement. This method of animating has been around for a long time. It's classic and simple and brings a warm, familiar, and nostalgic feeling to us from our screens. However, this process is very time-consuming and can be fairly limiting in terms of the range of motion of characters, the amount of detail and realism, and much more. So is this form of animation inferior? Well, no. It's simply more time-consuming and less advanced, whereas in contrast, 3D animation was phased in the 1960s and constantly became more advanced by the year. Today, this method has expanded to 3D CGI, also known as computer-generated imagery. This technology has advanced to levels of realism that makes it hard to distinguish what is real and what is not. This advanced level of technology can be seen in games like The Last of Us 2, Resident Evil Village, and a more simplified realism can be seen in movies such as Encanto, Adventures of Tintin, and Soul. There are many steps involved in making 3D animation, but put together, makes realistic characters with smooth movement, making the environment the animators create more immersive for the audience. The basic steps to 3D animation include 3D modeling, rigging, texturing, animating, lighting, and rendering. So let's break down the basics of what each step is. For starters, 3D modeling is the process of computer-generating shapes to sculpt objects, characters, and more, in programs such as Blender, Adobe Illustrator, and Matterport. A great example of 3D modeling is the Lego Movie, which uses mainly 3D modeling to create the illusion of stop motion with Lego figures. The next step in animation is rigging, which is the quote-unquote digital bones that are made to match the 3D character model that enables the character to move. Popular programs include Maya, Mixamo, and AutoRig Pro in Blender. The next step is texturing, which is the process of adding color and detail to the 3D models, making the modeled characters appear more realistic with things like clothing textures, skin detailing, hair, and much more. Next, the character has to be animated, meaning moving the character's joints and limbs, continuously repeating this step as the frames are moved forward to create a fluid motion. Lastly, the character needs to be adjusted into their environment with lighting and rendering, which is the final polishes to the character so it fits flush with their environment. For example, if a character is next to a fire, a warm glow would shine on their features and clothes, with contrasting shadows behind them and around them. Now, this process appears to be longer and more complicated. However, compared to classic 2D animation, it is simpler and offers more creative freedom and realism. The amount of work that goes into classic 2D animating with the animation itself, the live modeling for characters, polishing images using ink, and coloring each image is extremely tedious and requires a large team. The movie Snow White, for example, made in 1937 by Walt Disney Studios, took approximately 4 years to make, Yes, 4 years. Granted, depending on the technology and effects a studio is going for, the average modern 3D animated movie takes around 3 years or more. But judging by the fact that Snow White isn't a very long movie by today's standards, around 83 minutes, goes to show how far we have come in terms of efficiency and technological advancements to make movie and TV production more immersive. Now, does this mean 2D animation is dead? Well, no. Some studios today still use 2D animation, such as Studio Ghibli and Fortiche, by still doing 2D animation with the help of technology. And some, like DreamWorks and Fortiche, have used a mixture of 2D and 3D animation in projects like the series Arcane League of Legends and Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. Or studios like Sony Animation that use software to mimic the effect of 2D animation in 3D modeling to create a classic 2D comic feel, but with hints of realistic aspects in projects like Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. This new mashup style of animation has been making waves in the past few years, with both forms of animation being unique and effective in their own ways. I'd say that neither one is better than the other. However, the classic 2D animation style was very true to its time with the technology they had, and as tedious as it was effective in capturing the hearts of many and still is today. So although the old way of animating is being phased out, it can still be revamped and preserved in certain ways, like implementing technology that mimics real traditional mediums such as paint, and software that allows the movement of 2D lines on a character to give them a 2D appearance while still being 3D, or combining both 3D and 2D, and much more. And although nostalgia is important to us, and we can't help but hold on, sometimes it is important to look to the future but learn from the past. And I think preserving classic 2D animation with 3D animating technology is the perfect way to make something from our childhood capture our interest and hearts like it used to. So if you're interested in any of these blended styles of animation, I highly recommend watching shows like Arcane League of Legends and movies like Puss in Boots: The Last Wish and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse if you haven't already, because they are the perfect examples of this 2D and 3D blend. And if you want to learn more about some of the aspects of 2D art, traditional mediums, and how those are being implemented into 3D digital tools, I recommend checking out Creating Spider-Verse by Grace Ng. It covers all of those things and more in regards to creating the Spider-Verse movies. That being said, I hope you all enjoyed and learned something new about animation today.